Good morning and welcome back. This is K24 This Morning, second half of our newspaper review. It's all about order in the House, talking about county assemblies and how they're managed and their mandate and delivery to the citizens. Also makes the basis of our question of the day. Let's have that up. Do you feel that your county assembly has been successful in its mandate so far? Once again, do you feel that your county assembly has been successful in its mandate so far? You can send us your thoughts, your feedback on the WhatsApp number at the bottom of the screen. You can also get me at I am Jeff Morte on Twitter or at K24 TV. Let's have those messages up. Jeff, most of county assemblies are money-oriented, and since they always want to move to the next political level of leadership, you find them blackmailing governors to get money for their selfish agenda. Some assemblies even think that if they impeach the governor, the incoming one will bow to their dictatorship, and this is what has been the problem with our assemblies, behaving like the defunct councillors' forums. That's Jenga Wakongo from Kihara. We have another message, we'll have it up. I concur with Honorable Speaker Douglas Mbilu on the fact that success of devolution will work if adequate resources are channeled to the counties, as well as they are given the independence to transact their role without intrigues from parties and the national government. Okay, those are some of the messages coming in so far. We have one more. Good morning, Jeff. The Riot Act, which was read by Mr. Kinyua, isn't new. It's just a reminder. Remember, we have a Public Order Act where it's well stipulated on how to notify the authorities before conducting any rally. It's just that in Kenya, we like playing politics in everything. I'm Collins. Okay, thanks for that. Of course, that makes front page news, of course, in most of the dailies today. Let's get back to the discussion we're having right now, and it's all about order in the House. What we usually see on TV, gentlemen, when it comes to the county assembly, at times isn't as orderly as it should be. We've seen quite a bit of chaos in different counties, pockets of chaos, a bit of violence. Migori, a couple of weeks back, we even had an MCA, fracturing her arm in this particular issue. And we do understand that differences will be there, and the MCAs need to debate this out. Why does it degenerate so fast to physical confrontations? They're fighting, they're throwing chairs, they're slapping each other. Why does it get there?
First, let's accept the fact that these disagreements are very common in every parliament. And I'll give you highlights, just not within Africa, but globally. On the 16th of May in Hong Kong, the parliament was in chaos. Right? When you go to Greek parliament, it was in the same chaos, sometimes in May. Turkey, the same thing. Okay, Ukraine, the same thing. And it's part of what democracy is all about. The biggest question is how do we manage it as speakers at the county level? And for what I can say is there is a mechanism in which any speaker can be able to foresee such kind of trouble coming in and be able to manage it. I remember during our first term, we went through some orientation with the then Speaker of the National Assembly, Kenneth Marende. And the biggest question we asked him is how he was able to navigate at that time when the country was really falling apart. And he told us one thing, which some of us who took it with a lot of strength, we've been able to use it to manage. As a speaker, it is important that before you go to the chamber, I believe, you need to know what the discussion is going to be. I think it starts there because these discussions that normally come to the assembly and then they later escalate into fights, they're normally discussed somewhere. It is very important that as the head or as the speaker, you're able to have people to inform you of what is coming. What we witness in these county assemblies, it's part of members trying to express their dissatisfaction, for example. The biggest question we need to ask yourself is how best can we stop or prevent that from happening? And you'd realize to do that, I believe what we most likely lack in these county assemblies that have these numerous skills is proper dialogue and respect for one another. Okay, if as a speaker you can be able to bring both parties together, like what my brother was saying before, you need to be some kind of a moderator. Okay, there is nothing that comes before the county assembly that is alien. These things are normally emanate from the county assembly. As a speaker, I think you have a responsibility to be aware of what is happening in your county assembly. And the moment you realize that, the moment you do know that what is happening, what is coming up, I think then it gives you a better chance of pulling the parties together and getting people to talk. I speak of my county assembly. This is my second time I'm serving. And when people talk of people fighting county assembly, it's not that Kilifi is silent or is dead. We've had issues, serious issues. But I came to realize that dialogue, okay, bring the boring factors together, bringing people together really helps. Because you're dealing with politicians. Remember, these are people who have done politics in the various worlds. They are people who are good at what they do best, which is politics, propaganda, and so on and so forth. If you don't have a mechanism in a county assembly to be able to establish what's coming tomorrow, then you're likely to see what's going to happen and what has been happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
Douglas, I'll come to you as well, because even when you speak about Makueni, we've seen various instances of chaos there. A couple of years back, I think even there were gunshots, you know, when it got to that particular point. And people wondered, we need to just pump the brakes first and ask ourselves, what's going on? Is it the quality of MCAs we're putting in that's a problem? Is it the quality of the debate that is lacking? How does it get to that particular level where even firearms are being drawn?
My colleague is very right on what he has described, and that is part one of it. But part two
There's
of
a part
it,
two.
There's a part two of it. If you sample counter assemblies that have deteriorated to conflict and physical fighting, you'll find there is a dichotomy in that assembly. And let me start with the former Makueni counter assembly. You find the governor was elected on a minority party, and the majority of MCAs were from a different political party, that was Wiper. But the speaker was affiliated to URP, he's a former URP candidate. And there was a presence of URP at Jubilee that time, presence of Wiper, and presence of a governor on a minority party. Back to Migori. Migori, a notice was issued and was given that the governor must go, and the chairperson of the majority, that is the ODM, gave a notice that the Speaker of the County Assembly must preside over impeachment of a governor. That is not how things work. But what that tells you is that the political party in the Assembly has been instructed, and therefore there are those who will be for and those who will be against. And some will be manipulated or influenced so that they can execute that. Recently, what happened in Nairobi, my good friend Speaker Elachi had to withdraw from office. Then Raila Odinga and President Kenyatta had to convene the MCS. They had to agree on a candidate where ODM has agreed to support Nairobi. At Jubilee as a candidate, there is a speaker. It means that if you are able to switch off that fire in less than 5 seconds, then you also have the ability and the capacity to keep that assembly fighting for 24 hours. So part one is okay, but part B of it, where there is conflict, there is a lot of interest and influence from outside, over resources.
Right.
Remember, the national government programs and projects are not felt at the sub-location level. What is the national government doing, and what is the visible thing that can be seen the eastern side of this country? You will say a few roads, which are Kera roads and SGR, and probably Thwake Dam. In every polling station, you will find a project or a program. So members of parliament and other influential politicians would really want to interfere with the business of the assembly for allocation of the resource or for perpetuating politics and re-election. So there is a lot of external interference when it comes to approval of budgets and the programs of the county assembly, or destabilizing a county assembly so that a governor may have a upper hand in dealing with the issue, or a governor who is not towing line in a certain political dimension, then the assembly is manipulated or it's pushed to exert pressure and force to that governor or remove him. Remember Waiguru and Kirinyaga, where the assembly was blamed not to do the right thing. But when the proceedings were followed in the Senate, it was evident that there were issues that the assembly addressed and had to be addressed. At long last, what did they do so that we can have peace at Kirinyaga? The governor for Kirinyaga and the members of the county assembly had to sit down and address the fundamental issues that were raised by MCS. How many times do you, Jeff, capture the good things that do happen? No. There was live coverage on K24 on how the assembly and Waiguru are fighting. But the story on reconciliation and how Anne Waiguru has ceded ground to listen to the sound voices of MCAs has never been captured substantially. Thank you.
So the media is also to blame for what's going on?
Well, maybe. Good things are not newsworth, I must say.
Let me get Honorable Kaguchia in on this one as well, because some aspects of this, and some people say when you see this type of acrimony, when you see this type of chaos, follow the money. That's where this issue is, and that's what most people see from the outside looking in. They talk about, County Public Service Board, lots of influence in there. And you see this MCAs fighting, it's not about any legislation or oversight. It's who can get a bigger piece of this money and this influence in there. Is that a correct assessment to make from what we see when there is chaos in county assemblies?
Definitely. When I became Speaker in the County Assembly of Nyeri, one of the warnings I was given by the members is that, Speaker, you may look very cool, but remember this is not a church service you are coming to preside over. It's not a mosque where we are coming for prayers. This is a house of politics. And an assembly is much more like a workshop. In a workshop, you have to manufacture goods, you have to weld goods, you have to make sure that you come up with the final products. And in the meantime, as you do this, there's quite a bit of noise that will be coming from that. And so in assemblies, every other member is ensuring that they get as much resources, particularly to their wards, as possible. And so when members come to the assembly, they are not coming, to beg. They are coming to, of course, demand and to push as they represent their members. Because members of county assemblies, unlike any other political class, are people who, most of them, sleep at home. These are people who interact with their electorates on a daily basis. These are people who attend burials, who attend weddings, who attend parties, who attend church services in their locality on a daily basis. That means that the interaction with the public is too much. And hence, the kind of pressure that members of county assembly have to get on a daily basis is much more than any other political class would have in Kenya. And so you expect when they come the following day to the county assembly, with all the pressure they are bringing from sometimes systems that are failing back in their wards, let's say like when it is rainy and the roads are not passable, the members of public put all the weight on them. And so when they come to the county assembly, they are demanding. They're coming to push. They're coming to demand. They're coming to lobby. They're coming to ensure that these resources are taken back to their counties. And so you can't expect then that county assemblies will be so quiet, that they will be so cool. They have to sometimes have a bit of noise here and there. And probably that's the only thing that we need to ensure is that as speakers and also as the county leadership, because the county leadership also plays a very big role, especially the majority leaders and the minority leaders plus the whips, they also play a very, very vital role to ensure that there is stability in the county assembly. So what we need to ensure is that when all these noises are happening, when all this pressure is being exerted from all corners, we do not have it flaring up into conflict, into fights, into jabs and physical confrontation, so that whatever kind of confrontation there is something that is within the acceptable legal means. So it's true to say that county assembly members do push so much for the resources. Now, when you come to the issue of public service boards, for example, those are still part of the resources in terms of employment. You may not have direct influence over the county public service board, over who they employ as a member of county assembly, because these boards are also independent. But you'll be concerned if, for example, you find all the people who are getting these jobs are coming from other wards and not your ward. So at that point, you'll expect a member of county assembly to raise their voice and say, I demand that also people from my ward also get to share or to participate in the development of the county through employment. So members of county assembly do have a voice. They have pressure on the ground, and they do put pressure also on the governors to ensure that they perform. But I would want the public really to understand members of county assembly, because these are the people they spend their time with, so that a lot of times they understand why this pressure has to come, and they do not always side or buy the argument from the governors that the county assembly is blackmailing them. The issue of blackmail will probably be a situation of last resort.
Let's actually talk about that. I want us to go there. Let me just cut you short, Honorable Kaguchia. I want us to go there, even as we talk about this, and talk about how transparent, operations in county assemblies are for those members of a particular county. And even as you take that discussion to that particular point of view, you're actually going to get yourself 500 shillings worth of airtime, all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. So keep on WhatsApping in your name and where you're watching from with a screenshot of the e-paper. Once you send that in, you'll get yourself 500 shillings worth of airtime, all courtesy of the PD and Safaricom. But I want us to move it forward very quickly because we are pressed on time on this, and speak about whether the citizenry really understands the role of the MCAs. Is it transparent enough? Can they, because we know at the National Assembly, there's actually a public gallery. They can come in and watch debate goes on. If I was in Kilifi and I want to find out what's on the table today as far as legislation or oversight is concerned, can I walk into the county assembly, have a seat, watch?
Actually, you don't need to walk into the county assembly right now. Our proceedings are normally live on Facebook. You can always meet us on every Wednesday, because we condense the days in which you are sitting. We sit on Wednesdays.
Is this post-COVID or it's always been?
No. It's always been like that.
Okay.
But now we do all our sittings on Wednesday because of the COVID. Okay. Now let me say this. One, I think there's nothing wrong for members of the county assembly to fight for resources. In fact, I think that's the reason why they were elected. When you look at the Constitution and Article 185, it clearly stipulates what county assembly members are supposed to do. One is to legislate, to oversight, and to offer representation. So when members are offering representation, it means they're taking the needs of the people from the ground to the assembly for discussion. And once adopted, then it's forwarded to the executive for implementation. It is at that point when the executive is not willing to implement, in my view. That's where the trouble starts.
Okay.
Number two, on the issues of transparency, yes, it is expected and it is important that any county assembly must conduct its business in a fair, transparent manner. And as county assemblies, I think you asked whether you can come and sit in the gallery. Every county assembly that I've been to, and all the speakers will attest to it, has a gallery where people can be able to sit. Why? Because it is important. This is a place where decisions are being made. It is fair that members of the public are engaged. The other thing that county assemblies need to do, and which majority have done, is to ensure that there is public engagement when times for budgeting and making of laws and so on and so forth. Okay. As Kilifi, what we have done, we've always made sure that during the budget making process, we prepare these budget statements when they're brought to the county assembly, and they're given to the public for their contribution for them to contribute in good time. One of the things that we've realized in doing so is that, unfortunately, most members of the public have not appreciated the role of what their role is in terms of public participation. You realize as an assembly, you organize for a forum where you're expecting people to come and make their contributions, and then you end up with 2 or 3 people in the hall. Okay. Now, unfortunately, that is usually the opportunity that is given to the people to contribute towards legislation and so on and so forth, but they don't take that opportunity. And then when you realize things are being discussed at the county assembly, they are discussed without the contribution of the local person.
Right.
So it's an issue which I would want to take advantage now to encourage that whenever members of the public are called upon, especially during the budget making process, because that is the time when issues of resources are being raised. Currently, as an assembly, we are looking at the ADP. This is a document that informs the budget and how the budget is going to be made. But if it's taken out to the public and the public don't come out to make their contribution, you realize that at the end of the day, you have a document which is only driven by the executive. Okay. And that is where the problem starts.
Okay. Douglas, is it a civic education problem? Do they not understand how they can plug into this particular process in terms of public participation? Because at times you'll find the sentiment is that our MCA wanakula tu pesa, wakutuna magari kubwa, wamekam kukula pesa, and that's the sentiment right there, and they don't know they can also play a part. They can come in and give their views in terms of public participation. Is it a civic education problem?
It's a civic education, and you're right. The discussion here is not our MCAs or Japitisha Mswada pesa, because the intention and the interest of a certain voter is I'm voting for you, so that then when you are in office, you are able to support me in matters of school fees and food, you buy me tea and things like that. So indeed it is true that in the advent of the new constitution, there wasn't robust civic education and public education for voters and citizens to understand the role of the members of county assembly, which is limited to oversight over executive, representing them in the assembly and passing legislation. But it is presumed, just like members of parliament preside over CDF, a member of county assembly can preside over resource allocation and implementation, which they don't do. But we have that problem, that a member of county assembly cannot walk around without 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 in the pocket. Not, I don't want to blame the citizens, not because of the citizens that they want it, but there is poverty, just like post-COVID. And I think they just want to reason with the stomach. They are in need. They need some transport to go to hospital. If the facilities are not good, they have to go to a private hospital. So there is that confusion that a member of county assembly is meant to represent you for programs and projects that are going to enhance your economic and social well-being, as opposed to giving handouts. That is one of the problems that we have. But Article 196 of the Constitution 2 provides that a county assembly and its committee shall conduct shall conduct business in an open manner and facilitate public participation and involvement of the citizens and media. If you tune into local radios every morning in every part of this country, whether it is at the coast region, at the central, at northeastern, after the first and second item, the third and fourth and fifth, they will give reports on activities around county assemblies and county. So many people may not really follow that, but media and other members of public are invited to the county assembly to follow. Last week, we were considering the finance bill, which sees into taxation of raising local revenue, and members of county assembly Makueni visited nearly every market, engaging the market trade committee to understand why should we charge 20 shillings, 100 shillings, and 1,000 on that. That is public participation, and I think it is picking up, but it has not been very well. But there is that confusion as to whether our MCA should facilitate cash at hand or should facilitate policies, legislation, and oversight.
Yes. We have 2 minutes to go before we wind up this show, so I'll want parting shots from each of our guests. And because of time, please keep them short. Let me start with Honorable Kaguchia. And even as you give your parting shot, I want us to speak to matters independence of the county assembly. How can they maintain, assert, or reclaim their independence as an institution with all the external forces that at times come into play?
Members of county assembly have to be deliberate, that they will not bow to pressure from other politicians. Sometimes there are politicians who have vested interest in the county assemblies for obvious reasons. So it's important that members of county assembly do make a deliberate step to keep off that kind of pressure. Secondly, it's important that the government, the National Assembly and the Senate do find it right, as members of county assembly have already requested through a bill that is already before the House, to amend our laws so that the county assemblies can be fully, and I mean fully, 100% independent financially from the executive. Because so far, any county assembly would still have to go to the county treasury to have their funds released. That again is very important, because we have seen some county assemblies where they have been held hostage actually by the governors, like it was in one of the county assemblies in Eastern Region, and that happened for like 3 months, and that in a way stifles the independence of the county assembly. And lastly, the best way to ensure that county assemblies are also are properly independent is by ensuring that the ward fund that has been pushed so long is actually implemented, so that the resources are divided as per the wards when they are leaving Nairobi. They don't have to go to the county headquarters to then be redistributed. It will be important to ensure that every ward gets an allocation when money is being allocated and when money is being sent from Nairobi, so that as a member of county assembly, you do not have to beg for certain activities to be conducted in your ward, for certain development projects to be implemented in your ward. You know that for sure your ward is allocated this amount of money, and then what will happen is you will have to involve the members of public in that ward to facilitate, or rather to in public participation, to ensure that they decide on how the money is going to be used. Of course, this doesn't mean that you give them...
Honorable Kaguchia, we had to, because of time, we're really pressed for time, and I'll have to have these other gentlemen come in as well, so I'll just have to cut you short there.
Maybe just the last one is just to say that this does not mean that the members of the county assembly will be running the kitty themselves. It doesn't mean that they will be procuring. No, the procurement agency still remains to be the county executive. But the members of county assembly do decide, or they participate in giving the projects that are supposed to be implemented in their wards.
Honorable Jimmy, let me come to you. In a house where you have a super majority, how do you maintain independence and don't get direction from party headquarters?
Actually, we've never had any single incident in Kilifi where we get directions from the party headquarters. We have learned to conduct our business independently as a county assembly. There has been no such incident where I've received a letter from ODM directing us to do X, Y, and Z. We put the executive in check as it's supposed to be, because we understand our role, which is oversight, and as it is, we are doing it the way it is. The other thing which I need to stress upon is that there is need for the public to understand what the role of an MCA is, because the expectations out there, they're just too much. You elect an MCA whose roles are very clearly defined under the Constitution, to oversight, to represent you, and to make laws. But then you expect them to come and do what? Build schools, roads, and so on and so forth. That certainly cannot work. And the last thing I want to say is that there is need to have the county assembly empowered. We've had obstacles when it comes to, for example, issues of finances. Okay, at this point in time, you might find that we still have money put together at the executive. Then the financial independence is not fully realized, and that really impedes on the work of the assembly. So in order for us to achieve devolution, ultimately, I think there is a need to identify the role that county assemblies play, because in my view, county assembly form an integral part of devolution. Okay,
very quickly, as we wind up, 30 seconds from you, Honorable Douglas. How do we get the assemblies to be independent as we even wind up this political term to 2022?
The assemblies are required by law to be independent arm of a government, and I think most of assemblies are. What is important is to the public to appreciate the role of a county assembly and imagine that there is no way a state and media will work together and the citizens will benefit, and that executive and county assemblies will work together and the citizens will benefit. In most instances, when they do disagree, I think it's even safer for the citizens to know that those disagreements are not in the interest of the executive, neither the assembly, but things are in a workshop and something is happening.
Okay, I think because of time we'll have to leave it at that. Quite an interesting engagement, just understanding the processes, the challenges, and the promise of the institution of the County Assembly. Thank you so much for making time to be in the show this morning. Douglas Mbili, thank you so much for your time. Asante sana. Honorable Jimmy Kahindi, thank you so much for your time as well. John Kaguchia as well, thank you so much for making time to be on the show. Asanteni sana. And of course, quite an orderly debate that we had today. But what do you expect when you have 3 speakers on the show? Asanteni sana. You take a short break, of course, back on the side as we get interactive. Don't forget, you can get yourself a copy of your People Daily. It's only 10 shillings. The number that you dial, *550 *4#. You get it straight to your phone, all courtesy of the People Daily and Safaricom. Short break. We're back with interactive. Good morning.